elements that we have added. So in that case, what we can do, we can add a comma in between the elements and tell H6, P and span all are to have the same color. So this will take effect and will add the color for all the elements. So this is your element selector. Then this brings us to the next selector, ID selector. Consider an element division with ID is equal to section 1. So let's say section 1 has a couple of elements inside them. So it has a span tag, some content, then it has a H4 tag, which also has some more content, and small tag coupled with paragraph tag. Last content, some small caption. So now when we are using the CSS selector, in order to make changes for all the elements inside the ID, what we will do is we will utilize internal style sheet or embedded style sheet and tell style, and then followed by that the ID name hashtag section 1 and curly braces, the set of statements that we need to be adding the properties. Color, yellow green, padding 15 on either sides, 15 pixels on either sides, and let's execute this. There you have it. We have 15 pixel space on top, bottom, left and right, and likewise top, bottom, left and right. So this is our ID selector. So ID selector will be providing the same behavior like the universal selector for applying the styles for all the elements. If you are providing only one set of ID, then one set of element for one set of ID, then only that particular element will take effect. And then we have the class selector. The most commonly used selector classes or selector types of all the selectors. A class is usually denoted in a div tag. A class is usually denoted in a div tag. So, unlike ID, class also utilizes the class attribute, which is a global attribute again. So, class has equal to a quote and the class signs that we need. So, let us define a class and then come back and add in the class attribute. Special class. So now this is just a text sentence. In order to make it a class, just like how we've added a hashtag for section 1, we will have to add hashtag for the class. A full stop for the class. Just like how we have the hashtag for the ID tag, we also have a full stop or a period sign for the denoting the class, followed by curly braces and set of rules that we want the class to take effect. Let us call the class over here. So now we have called the class. So the next thing that we will be doing is see what is the present status of execution for this particular example. So since we have not added any properties in the class, we will not be getting any reactions. So what we shall do is we shall quickly add a set of statements for this particular class. And let us change the color to something more darker. Let us see what the execution of this page looks like. So now we have gold on the black, which is added by the class, and then the regular styling, which is added by the ID. So this is how the class denotes its working. And then we have the descendant selector. Let us take an example for div again. So div class is equal to have a descendant. Okay, so now inside the div, what we will do is we'll add a paragraph tag. This is the descendant, and now let us add the internal style sheet for this, and then we will tell descendant and then tell to set the color to font color to aqua. And let us see how this has worked so far. And there we have it. The element inside the descendant selector is set with the color blue or aqua. So let's, for instance, see how the elements outside of the selector is. So the element outside the descendant does not have any colors added to it, but the one inside the descendant is having a color that we have set. Now, let us take a look at the pseudo class selectors. Consider an element A with an hyperlink indexed to the same page, index.html. Okay, so click me. This is the style you are setting for this, and just add the internal style sheet and then define the style of A. I'm going to set font size to be a medium size and color to be blue. Okay, so this will set the font size to a bigger one and the color to blue. Let us see how it is to blue. Let us see how it is taken effect so far. So we have click me over here. So now in pseudo class selectors, we have four different values. We have link, which is the default one. So let us add this over here. Right? And then we have the hover, which we'll add elsewhere. A link, font size, large, and color turquoise. Let us try to save and hover over this. Hover. On hover, if you see, the image will go for a larger size and the color will also change. So this is what the pseudo class selector will do. It will set the state and add the consequent values for the element. In any website construction, the background of the web page plays a very important role in terms of presentability and the aesthetics of the website, right? So what CSS does is it gives us a property called as background to set different background properties for the web pages or the websites that we are working on. So we have 5 primary background properties, namely background color, background image, background repeat, background attachment, and background position. So let us decode what background color, image, repeat, attachment, and position depict. Background color property is basically used to set the color of the background where the class or the particular selector is called. Maybe for the body, if you call a background color for the body, the entire viewport will get the color. Or let us say you have a section and you want a particular section to have a different color, then that particular section will have the color called over there. So unlike the color, which is used only for styling the text, background color is used for styling the background of the web page. And the color properties that we will be using here is almost similar to color, which is the color name, much like using black, white, green, yellow. And we also have hexadecimal value with which you can call the background color and the RGB color method, right? So then we have the background image property. So background image property basically sets a image to the background for the element where it is called. Let us say we are calling a background image inside a div tag. So the background image will be available on the div tag based on the width and height that you have provided the element. Then we have the background repeat property, which works in conjunction with background image. Background repeat basically allows us to add the direction of the flow of images. So we have repeat, which will repeat the image unconditionally. Then we have repeat X, which will repeat the image in an X axis. We have repeat Y, which will repeat the image in the Y axis, and then no repeat, which will just keep the image as it is, a single image. Then we have the background position. What the background position tells is where the image is supposed to be assigned or where the position of the image is supposed to be put. So whether top right or bottom or the leftmost part or the top left part. So they are denoted with the keywords left top and then top, top right or right top, background position left, background position center, background position right, background position left bottom for the bottommost part, and similarly for the other two. Then we have the background attachment property. The background attachment property will tell us how the image is supposed to work, whether to be attached to the background as a fixed value or to be able to move around. So for background attachment, we have fixed that comes with it. So now let us see programmatically how these work in conjunction. Let me take this code snippet and add the embedded style. And now let me select the body as a whole. So for this, I will be using the element type selector. I will tell body, the background color of the body to be aquamarine, something lighter. So let's see what happens. Does it take change? Yes, it does change. So then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to call a background image. Background image. So when we are calling the image, we will take the example of a CSS property value keyword called as URL. So what this URL will do is it will tell the root or the path of the image file that we will be calling from. So in my case, the image is put up in the root directory. So we'll just tell world, and the name of the image is worldwideweb.png. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it inside quotes, tell worldwideweb.png. And when I save it, let's see what is the output that we've got. Okay, so now we have a background image that is taken effect on the entire page, right? So now how can we avoid this? In order to avoid this, we have another property called as background repeat. If you see here, this is just repeating itself indefinitely, right? So this brings us to this keyword called as background repeat. So we can just tell no repeat if you do not want the image to repeat. So there will be only one image available, or one image put up on the viewport. Or if you want if you want the image to repeat in a particular direction, let's say you want it to repeat in a X direction or the X axis. So type repeat X. So this will repeat the image in the X axis, right? Or if you wanted to repeat itself in the Y axis, so then you can tell repeat Y. There you have it. And I would simply like to keep it simple, so I'm going to keep it as no repeat. Okay, so now we do not have the image repeating. All right, we have one single image. Now if you observe the image, the way it is attached, the position is not what I desire. I want it to be put up in the rightmost, in the centermost part of my website. So for that, what I will do is I will utilize the property background position. So background position, there are two ways that we can tell where we want the image to be aligned. So one is utilizing the keywords themselves, much like center, left, right, top or bottom. And if you see it, it's going to be in the center. But then if you observe, it's complete, half of it is almost up. In order to mitigate this, what are we going to do? We are going to add another background position and tell 50% and 50%. Now, in order to align the images, so what we will do is we will utilize the help of the property background position. Okay. So in position, we have two different ways that we can align the text or elements in the page. So one is utilizing the keywords themselves for the position. So left and top. And if you observe, this is the left and top part, right? Or if you want it to be centered, you can just use top. So it's going to be centered here. Then you have right and top. So it's just going to pull it to the right side of the viewport, right? Alternatively, you can also utilize percentage values, more like 0, 50%, which will align the image. So since the image is huge, it is going up. So if we had a smaller image, we could have seen it in a better way, right? So 50%. So this would be the middle part. And then we have the bottom part, which we can call it like this, 0 and 100%, or left, bottom,